Okay, so in this video, I want to share my experience with the practical coding part of the interview process. I've had good success consistently passing. Maybe I need to work on my system design. That'll be the next video. But been very consistently passing the technical rounds. Today's video, maybe in like 10 minutes, I'll go through my notes. Maybe a little bit of like quasi live coding. That's a better representation of kind of like peer-to-peer text. You can watch videos that do mock interviews. But this is going to be from first principles. That I feel like that's where I can kind of provide my experience in a way that rather than being caught up in implementation details and an example of the, let's say, questions being asked, we take, I don't know if higher level abstraction is the right word, or higher order, how to communicate this, but the term that comes to mind is, from first principles. Like, there's just so much to know, and it varies from like situation to situation across domains that you really can't memorize any of this. You can maybe try, like that's why leak code was a thing, and then people just started memorizing things, and then like maybe that's why interviewers are not doing that anymore. Okay, so that's what this is. I'm gonna go through my own notes here. I'll show from first principles workflow. I have another like ScalaDraw frame for that, and then maybe I'll write some code if I don't have examples, because even like this, it doesn't need to be, well, you have the conversation with your interviewer. Some of them really want functional code, meaning code like that actually compiles and runs. Some of them are okay with pseudocode just to get your thought process. And then to the other extreme, some of them just really don't trust you, and then no matter what you do, you're gonna lose. So that's also been my experience. Okay, so I've had better success in the interview process doing this live. Unfortunately, this is my video, so I don't really have a time limit. Maybe I'll keep it to 30 minutes. That's pretty good. They kind of keep things realistic. So as I live commentary this, because it's more of a realistic okay. It's more of a realistic like situation when you don't have things prepared like this. And I don't like those videos where people just have a bunch of things and they narrate over it, and it's like, I can read that, So here's the thing. Depending on the amount of time that you have, my one this morning was 40 minutes and then 5 minutes. You're gonna have to like figure out time blocking. Usually there's like an intro, then like have the majority or I guess we're not doing system design. And then, the people do like 5-minute intro and then like leave 5 minutes for Q&A. Yeah, those are 10 minutes, and then most of the time we're going to be doing that. So this is the simple framework. This is notes that I've had consolidating other interviewer advice videos from more experienced people. This has been helpful. Not all interviewers care about guard clauses. I guess it's going to depend, right? So here's where the real world experience comes in, right? This is where what I'm doing right now potentially is why I've been having better success in more recent technical rounds than I have in the past. And here it is. So you ask the interviewer, as you think out loud, like I am now, I am trying to it's a little difficult to read. I am trying to better understand and gauge the level of functional code versus robust code. And the, well, I don't know, I said culture of code. Okay, so I did this question as I was working through the code base. Okay, so here's, I'll make some stuff up. I'll do it live. I think this is important. So my experience, we start asking questions like, we have, you know, in this case it was a template, and then this is in Python. I should mention that actually. Okay, sure. I'll be nice and I'll put this. All right, so example 1, example 2. Did I spell that right? No, I didn't. Okay. Okay, great. So, okay, here's the question, right? It's like, okay, you have your template. All right. I'm going to use what I recently had to deal with, but it's actually transferable to other situations, right? Because we're going to talk about this from first principles. So, I saw this and was like, okay, then I read the question, right? So some of the things that are coming to my mind are, you know, is this the right data structure we should be using? Is this okay now? But for how long? All right, so here's some questions. Then you start doing like, oh, it's O of n, it's continuous, right? So we're passing in like, well, it's like, we'll define a function. So here's some pseudocode. So pseudo. And then recently, as I read the question and the interviewer is explaining these things, I am live animating and writing my notes. So as I make this up, which is from my recent interview, the interviewer had asked, like, hey, define a function. You know, we don't really know what the inputs are yet. We're reading the question. It's like, okay, well, what is it doing? I don't know about the output. So here's, right? So as I say these things, you're making mental notes. You can write notes too as you write out, like input or data input, data input, data input, data type, data output, data type. Right? We already have the initial question of like, is this the right data structure? This is Python, so maybe there is no type safety. Maybe we don't care about this yet. I don't know. You have to ask the interviewer. Some interviewers don't care, and it's great to see you signal that, but that's up to you. So let's see. Usually they have an explanation or a doc that you read that gives you insight. So like explanation of the functionality of the code. Right? So this is insight to where and how to define your naming convention. All right? So this is where we're doing Python. We're going to say, hey, we're going to use PEP8. So we're going to do snake case. Try to follow best practices. But unironically, I've had situations where the code base used camel case. So, as I was writing my function, I called mine a pseudo payload, where we'll just do this for now. We'll put it as a set. That's okay. We'll do that. That's okay with that. And let's do... Let's do 1. All right, so here's the thing, right? So I had to find this as I am doing live. And so I guess one of the best practices is, even though like I've already done a PEP8 snake case, You know, what if this code base had sudo payload 1, right? Camel case. It's you make the intentional design trade-off to be consistent with the code base. So even though sudo payload 2 should be named snake case, unfortunately, technical debt has accrued, and so now you have to be consistent. Nope, different language. With the code base, sudo. Right, so you do this live. You explain to the interviewer your choices and literally the design of code. I do it live. Some people can't do that. It's fine. I've just been doing this a while, so I guess I can do that. But the what I'm saying now in this video has been what's been working for me more recently, and how I passed my recent technical round, asynchronous pair coding. And you can already see I've been trying to like set myself up for success here. Because I'm intentionally testing a payload in which I'm using hash sets, or like a set in general, because there's no key. This is not a dictionary. It's not a hash map here. Right, so just also being mentally aware, like, oh, okay, well, maybe they want a hash map. So we'll do sudo payload 3. And then remember how to initiate things. Key. Well, in this case, we'll say maybe there is nothing to initiate. Maybe there is no value. And then you have the conversation like, oh, from collections, import default dict. Could be nice because it initiates 0. But that's if we initiate none and we have things that we want to initiate out of scope with the function. Otherwise, like, there's no reason we couldn't just iterate through and I don't know. Let's see, def. We can take input, do it as a string, a little bit of type safety, do it live. I don't know what the output is yet. Maybe it's nothing for now. I don't want to deal with the return statement. We could do that though. This wouldn't really work for where my brain is going, because if we wanted to initiate a dictionary or hash map here, it would be, we'd need 2 strings. In this case, before I do the whole list of strings and then the, is this even the right data structure? Okay, so let's do that for now. Then input 2 string. Okay, so I'm showing all this because, you know, we don't necessarily need to initiate this in memory before that. Then you have a conversation like, oh, you know, these are already known. We don't need to initiate it before. Keep things a little bit more memory optimized. We're operating at Python anyway. If we really wanted something high throughput and performance, we would do C, C++. Let's not do the assembly stuff and the other systems, lower level languages. I'm also working on that. So for now, let's just keep it Pythonic. Okay. So yeah, then you'd be like, all right, input string 1, input string 2. All right, so I'm just showing maybe we don't initiate a dictionary in which we have key value. Oh. And then key 2. Right, so maybe we don't do that. This is technically hard-coded, right? So that's the other thing. And then by wrapping it into function, then you can start asking questions like, oh, well, maybe instead of independent strings, we can consider a list of strings here, right? So then, right? So we start looking at the template. And then, we know later on, one of the notes that I have underneath was trying to remember dunder for this test. Because what's nice with this is, like, as you run the code in your script, this block of code, this script, and it runs in this file itself. That's the scope. And that's nice because after you get working code, which is what we're doing here, and we're like now redesigning the input string to do a list of strings, maybe we compile and run tests here. And I'm gonna write it down. I think this is important because you're supposed to have these conversations live during the interview. So I made the decision to consider refactoring from like the abstraction of string. Maybe we pass in a list of strings, and then let's not have the conversation about a set of strings, right? That's the whole point. Maybe we don't get there yet. We're making like small improvements over time, and we start thinking a little bit about tests. Here is an option. This is one that I personally like. Because maybe you don't do a live like change like that, right? Because remember previously, this was working, and then we broke it. So hold on, let me go back and input string to string. Okay. So maybe we would refactor this section of the code base, but we want to test things out. So then we go. It's not technically a test. We define a function that replicates this. Yeah, I guess we could do it here actually, rather than doing it in the main script. So we define my function list of strings, and then we'll pass in list string. Oh, sorry. Input string. That's our data type. And for now. And let's just keep doing this. Oh yeah, we want to initiate. And then let's say let's just keep it simple for now. Without having to do 4 elements, and then we'll have the greater conversation with the interviewer as I am doing now. Of saying, okay, well, we can take string 1 as our key. String 2 is the value. Then you try to identify these patterns. Like, okay, then does that mean example 3, like the third index, is the next key value in the dictionary that we're trying to initiate and then define its value? It's going to depend on the interviewer, but for now, let's just, for this video, because it's already pretty long, let's just do example 1 and 2 from a list of strings to initiate a dictionary for key and its value. Otherwise, we would then question the interviewer and ask like, well, why isn't this a hash set? Okay, and then you explain all these other reasons for O1 lookup and all this other good stuff, right? But for now, let me wrap this up. And for 5 more minutes, and then the remaining 5, I'll go in my previous notes about some of the like first principles thinking like that I'm saying here, because I'm literally making this up on the spot, doing this live. Okay, so my function is list of string. We have 2 elements. How do you unpack this? Right. So do you well, it's continuous list of strings, so there isn't like zip they could do. You're not passing in a tuple or tuple. So does that mean we do for I always get a little like weird about single letters in this, so like in something like that, like I guess you could. I think it's fine. It depends on the code base and like the design and culture. I guess technically you're supposed to be doing like I don't think that's gonna work, but maybe string val. No, because then that gets ambiguous with the dictionary key and value. Maybe we change the variable here. We can do that, I think. Okay. And then so we're not returning a dictionary. We just want to initiate it. Just for this example. It doesn't have to be realistic, so that's okay. So then, let's see, my dict. I guess if it's just 2, you don't necessarily need to do that. There's a couple ways we could do this. Let's see. So, what if we did it like this? What if we did because I've done this before. I don't know. I don't want to hard code it, but I'm running out of time myself here. Maybe we do just for now. I'm also doing this from memory. Let's see. Input string. This is terrible. And initiate the key. Input. What was it? We could do key, the first index, and then dict as the first, and then initially assign its value. All right, so this is a way of doing that. If we're gonna do it like this, then you have some other conversations about maybe we do for I've seen IDX for index. We'll keep it. We'll keep it holistic here. Oh. Okay. for index input string in, what was it? Where were we? Oh, input. Okay. All right. So as you're iterating through the list here. All right. So I'm already at time. So this is where, like, in the interview, you'd be like, hey, I just want to show you initiated in memory. Yeah, it's hard coded. Maybe this is how we would approach it. Like a little bit of automation, and have it dynamically updated by using enumerate, because unlike the first attempt, which we did, where I was using for string input string list, right? Like this is just going to be the value itself. Maybe you don't do it this way, but at least this is an alternative approach to having indexing used in order to assign values. Like that's fine. And then this also shows, like, a little bit about the built-in methods as part of the, I don't know if it's a data structure that's appropriate to use here, but some of the native things with the language. Okay, cool. So that's to say, for this 25-minute rant that I went on, that I literally made up live, is understanding the practical coding part across languages. Because even for me, I am using this framework to learn other languages too. I like Python. I actually did the same framework for SQL. That helped me learn that. Now I'm learning upskilling in C and C++. I think I'd rather be doing that than something like TypeScript for some of the lower level systems. That's more transferable for the work that I see myself doing. So not having a formal education in computer science, I struggled very hard, and I'm still struggling to figure out how to learn all this myself and to continue growth and continue learning. Okay. So the foundations, understanding primitives, what data types are, the integers, floats, booleans, and strings. I haven't had like that much. I mean, it's good to know. It's kind of fun. Excuse me, about type systems. At some point, even robust Python just feels like C and C++, and just having more like manual control. That's kind of why I like TypeScript too. It's just like more robust type safety. Because Python's not so. It's more flexible. Memory mutability and stuff like that is helpful for like memory management and garbage collection, like more C and C++ things. Higher level control flow, like your for loops, your conditionals, and then understanding scope. This is nice because as I was learning more about GPU computing, understanding like what global is in the high bandwidth memory for CPU versus where it is in GPU. And more recently as well with Zero GPU on Hugging Face, learn more about the decorating, like understanding where and why code is being executed as well at the hardware level. It's been really interesting and really fun to learn about. And then error and exception handling. This is kind of like the test, right? So this is after you do like your functional code that like actually works. It's good to know. And then after building on top of like native languages and what they offer out of the box from the primitives, understanding the data structures and algorithms that apply to them. We were kind of talking about that with like list. Python doesn't have arrays. The differences between hash sets, hash maps, trees. It's not listed here, but in my most recent interview, tries. This is important. I will write this out. We had a good conversation about this. So this really did help me prepare, and just having like an intellectual conversation about, oh, that's really interesting. Let's talk about that, and how tries were used for search, how that could differ from the design of your database. Again, like from these first principles thinking. For this video, the scope is the coding part, but this is affecting our system design a little bit in the design of code and the higher levels of abstractions that we are doing and the business problem that we're trying to solve. Okay. One more minute. Then the higher order things like object-oriented programming and what that looks like. I was hinting at it. Like I was just ranting about, hey, like maybe I'm doing a one-off function. Let's take a step back, similar to even at the lower abstraction of like, dude, I'm just passing in a string. What if I consider a list of strings? Should it be a list of strings, and should it not be a hash set of strings? Maybe it's a graphical relationship. Should that be a function? Should this be wrapped around a class? Should this even be within the same file? Should this, for this test, perhaps we consider as a set or assert, sorry, for inline testing compared to something that tests in the file? Maybe we have a separate file for CI/CD. So you say all these things from first principles. Start at what is in front of you to have something working. Then start thinking about the bigger picture. Okay, I think that's fine for 30 minutes. Let me see. What else do I got? Maybe this will be helpful. Nico was great for like getting me started. But I think I'll leave off with this. Right? Let me close off with as I was going through super basic Python, like this was always, Python was just something I just did for my day-to-day work in my career, but I never actually really sat down and like understood the like language, right? So now that fortunately I have a job, I can like really sit down and appreciate this and not be so bogged down with school and other life and responsibilities to actually enjoy what I'm learning. Okay, so honestly, it is kind of fun, maybe for me, maybe I'm weird, to freshen up these skills and knowledge. I think that's maybe part of the interviewing skill. Because I get worried as time goes on. When I get to the 10 years of experience, man, people have a really high bar and expectation of you. So I'm really trying to enjoy my low expectations here while I upskill and grow and mature into this, which is understanding the fundamentals of the programming language that you're doing. I'm still learning C. I think pointers are cool. But in Python, I think some of the dynamic typing and some of the built-in memory stuff going on under the hood that's like automatic, you don't have to take care of, I think it's really fun to like learn about because it's a privilege not to have to do that manually. For example, the difference between list.append versus list.extend. Like, I don't know, maybe I'll write it down. I think it's cool. And then let's see. So you have a list, and then append's going to add like another list in memory to it, right? But extend's cool because instead of literally doing this and then adding it, in the dimension of space, it's like a flat table. So it literally extends it. It's pretty cool. There's some other fun ones. Like from Netcode, what was a cool thing was learning about dot sort versus sorted. And then dot sort is preferred because it's like inline and more memory optimized because it returns none, whereas sorted returns the list. So there's some memory things that you can explicitly state out loud, like what I did recently with the dictionary stuff. In this video, like it's the same thing that I did in my most recent interview and in interviews I've had in the past that have passed me. Okay, so being aware of these data structures, if it's the right data structures, showcasing logic flows like if else, for while loops. Comprehensions are a little hand wavy. You could do them like the lambdas for the list and dictionary comprehensions. I was kind of doing that and I didn't want to like do that. I want it to be readable, comprehensible. Maybe you do it after as a way to like show, I don't know, like if it's convenient, sure, but try not to, in my personal opinion. And then depending on like what you're doing with the try excepts and your iterations, like pass, continue, break, and the differences between those. I don't think finally is mentioned here, but yeah. So block functions versus single inline lambda functions. Have the conversation about that. Not all lambdas single line are readable, so at some point you have to make the decision. Usually it's like the rule of three is pretty good. I don't think I did it for the code example I did. I kind of did it here, but even for your input functions, let's just say I had another string here. Okay, this is where I'd actually start considering like for block functions. Maybe we do this. maybe we start breaking things out. So this is actually something I've noticed in other code and code bases, to help keep things readable. Okay, so that's the design of code I was talking about. It doesn't really affect the functionality of the code. So you got to make sure like the code actually works first, and then you can do little things like that to help with the maintainability. Modules. I actually did have to do this in my most recent interview. I think I did it live when I was showing from collections. Did I do that? From dict? I don't remember. Usually I just move on with my life after I make these. Did I? I don't think I did. Anyway, so I'll just do it. Do it again. Whatever. I think I did. All right, something like that. My most recent interview, we were talking about, well, it wasn't regex, but I said regex, but it was like we were talking about a certain pattern, string pattern matching. I was like, okay, so let me do. I don't remember regex. I remember it was like something like that, and I wrote this, and then I like wrote some pseudocode, where the code looks something like. It was terrible. I know this isn't right. Like that's the whole point. It's okay if it's not right. Match. I don't remember live even after I did the interview. It's something like that. And then you like write something. I don't know. You get it. You get what I'm saying here. I know now it's not regex. It's something like in Python it's like import re. Okay, so that's the point. The point is like you just demonstrate you understand import from. It could be your own scripts and then understand like how to do that. Yeah, so the higher order of classes in object-oriented programming, we talk about the boilerplate of like what a class is, and should this be its own file, or should this be on top, and then you start talking about exceptions and testing. Maybe I'll update this note actually. So then, try except. I think it's else. Talk about those. Common errors, because you can't really exception or something like that. Like this is a catch-all. Usually you'd have a cascade of errors, right? So then I'm not going to do this live because I'm over time, but you get what I'm saying here. It's like conceptually be fine. Maybe you keep this in the back of your mind for like, yeah, you understand it's a catch-all. Ideally, you're more specific with your exceptions, so that you can flag custom things, and then also so that the error doesn't go to the user. You can catch these things. But that's after you write functional code, right? So at the bare minimum, you need to be able to write code that meets the business problem, and then you start making it robust. Where is it? I don't think I have. I don't think I have a listing. It's not an optimization thing either. Maybe. Oh yeah. Well, this is fine for now. Okay. Yeah. You make it work. Oh, it's actually up here. No, get rid of this for now. Yeah, just make it work. Then, try to make it right. Then try to optimize and make it work fast. Keep things clean and modular. High cohesion, low coupling. Don't hard code things. Try not to. Design for readability, where in the first pass, like it's intuitive and you're not having to deal with nested for loops and having to clean that up. I think where I want to end this rant for 30 seconds is after you have functioning code, then you start thinking about like type safety, robustness tests, maintainability, doc strings like this to understand like what the function is doing. I think live during an interview, you would do that after. I think you make the intuitive decision as you do it to prioritize signaling and demonstrating functional code first. Okay, great. Yeah, that's been my experience. I understand that, yeah, AI can write all this, but that's not the point. For some interviewers, some of them want to see your thought process. Like, if you can't even, not just write code, because sure, yeah, just AI code it, but then you would still have to review it and understand, like, functionally what it's doing anyway. So I'll leave it at that. Functional code to fix bugs with tests have been very transferable to other AI take-homes where I have passed consistently. Yes, you can't just vibe code it. I've done that. But then debugging and actually understanding the code and to be able to talk about it intellectually, that's where you get called out. At the decision making and understanding the code base. So this is a way. What I just talked about is another way. Maybe I talk about my experience doing the AI take-homes and test suites for those. I don't know. Or I continue on my own system design. I haven't had the best luck with that. So that's an area I still need to work on too.